I'd like to welcome everyone to this week's edition of the Software Spotlight, your source for the latest innovations in software for small business. I'm Michael Bernzweig, your host, and each week we are joined by executives at leading software companies to get an insider's perspective on the emerging technologies, business strategies, and market trends shaping the future. Tune in to stay ahead of the curve on leveraging software to boost productivity and growth in your business. Be sure to visit our website, softwareoasis.com, to access our free weekly software newsletter and sign up for our upcoming 2024 software webinar series. Today, we're being joined by Nedkov. He's the founder and CEO of Podvertise FM, a peer-to-peer podcasting advertising marketplace. With over a decade of experience in online advertising and entrepreneurship, Nedko is passionate about helping brands and agencies build return on their investment through partnerships with relevant podcasts. We'll discover his journey building Podvertise and his insights on the future of podcasting. So with that, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Michael. Thanks for the great opportunity to talk to your community.
I really appreciate your joining our community today, and a lot of different companies and individuals listening have been searching for different ways to monetize their podcast, or maybe on the flip side of that, I know a lot of brands are looking for different ways in which they can reach a deeper level of connection with the listeners on a whole range of different podcasts. So I was hoping you could give us a little bit of background on your entrepreneurial journey and how it's brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've started since my teenagers with online marketing forums back then, before social networks. I started with like SEO optimizations for Google rankings for my projects and for clients. I was freelancing, and over time also I've got more into paid advertising, and at some point it was working, but I really didn't feel satisfied. I wanted to build something really innovative and interesting, and to really build up. And I started my first startup, which was Podvertise, which was websites advertising marketplace. And we've done working on that for a few years. We've been working, and but my CTO back then had a full-time job and moved more into corporate world, and I've been doing partially the project. And during COVID, I was listening so much to podcasts, so I really enjoyed it, and it was so much interesting medium to me. I was listening to a lot of marketers, startups, and all this, and I really was curious to research it in the market and find out that it's really fragmented market with a lot of listening apps, monetization apps, and hostings and all this. And I figure out that actually podcasts really need monetization, and they're doing like super great content that is really week after week delivering to their audience, and the audience is patient to hear what they have to say, what new is happening in their industry or interests. And that's how actually we pivoted. Also, in that time, I've met. I've been already working for a few years with my current CTO, and we kind of really enjoyed it while testing out just the profile page of one podcaster, of course, Joe Rogan podcast, and we were playing around with that, and we've made like a prototype, and then he was really keen and said, let's go, let's try it out. And that's how we started, like during one hackathon, and we've made the profile, and then we really started to build the whole marketplace and the aggregator on the front with those active 600,000 podcasts profiles, and then the marketplace model. And it took us year and a half and more, and we've launched literally September last year, and yeah, since then we've
Fantastic.
onboarded.
Yeah, and no one said entrepreneurship or the journey would be easy, did they?
Yeah. I mean, you have to go through the multiple phases of ups and downs and all this, but
Sure.
I remember this picture where people imagine the success is like this, but it's actually like this, and then
Exactly.
eventually it goes out of to the. So
Yeah,
it takes a while, but yeah, I think we're helping right now both sides more or less of what our current experience for the last few months, and we're really trying to make win-win situations, because I can see the biggest issue, or what to say, is really communication and thinking like win-win for both sides. And yes, as long as we try to fix those and to it really simple and to simplify the process, after that
sure.
it's
It's what they
work.
say, less is more in many cases, right? And I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
a big part of it, sitting in this seat as a podcaster, clearly, there's a lot of times when it is just that. Many times it's challenging, whether it's the communication or, you know, finding the brands or filling spots. Many times podcasters have their hands full just creating quality content and attracting and growing an audience. And, a tool like this makes a lot of sense from where I sit, because at the end of the day, if it's putting together all of those pieces and making the communication simplified, that adds a lot of value for
That's the idea,
podcasters.
because the podcast has enough work that have to dedicate week after week building content to be more interesting for the audience. So the idea is to really simplify the process, where you can literally list your ad offer in the marketplace for a few minutes, or we're even working now to even simplify it with Google Forms, so we don't spend the time of the podcaster at all, and at the same time to have enough information for the advertiser, because they want specific audience details or maybe downloads, and of course pricing is important for both sides. And
Sure.
yeah, if you clarify those in a simple process, it really makes it no brainer for the advertiser to test multiple podcasts, and once they see some kind of result, then they will return and really scale maybe long-term partnerships with some of the podcasts, or it really depends on the case.
Sure. And a lot of times, podcasting and the podcasting community is like an unfound opportunity for a lot of advertisers, because at the end of the day, podcasters do build up a following and a level of trust with their community. And, being able to suggest products that they are on board with and trust, is very important. So I'm sure you
Yeah.
obviously have.
The idea is podcasters should focus on more on building the great content, and then we try to kind of help them to match with the relevant brands, so it also makes sense for his audience, and also to be able to sustain building the content, so it's not to bother with figuring out side things and monetizations and all this, so to
Makes a
really,
lot of sense.
yeah.
So can you walk us through, from when a podcaster and an advertiser initially connect on Podvertise, and what does it look like? How does the whole process work?
Yeah, so right now, for the podcaster, it's really they have to register on our website. On the right corner is podcast ads marketplace button, so they can register there and literally list, for example, their ad offer with really free title. Like they can write like pre how to say um, like pre-roll, mid-roll, post-roll, or whatever. Also put the title of the podcast, and really it's a free title.
Sure,
They can write whatever they want in the description, and then there are a few types of podcast ads, like host read ads, pre-recorded ads, sponsored interview as well as possible.
sure,
And then just fill up like a little bit more about the audience details, and then pricing, of course. And then on the other side, when advertiser is looking by category or search, they can find relevant podcasts, and they can literally go through the offers, and either they can directly message to the podcast to ask for more details, or can purchase directly the
sure.
advertisement. And then both sides really communicate the message for example, for the host read ad or pre-recorded
Right.
file or whatever. And then once the episode is live, the podcaster is sharing uh, the live episode link with the advertiser, and then the advertiser verifies, and they can exchange reviews after that, and the money is released to the podcast.
So you're really acting as a trusted intermediary between the
Yeah. You
podcaster and
can
the
you can imagine,
advertiser.
like, for example, like Fiverr, but for podcasts advertising.
Oh,
Like
that's
there,
brilliant.
yeah. The idea is everyone can list their geek in Fiverr case, but in our case is like advertisement, and it's really simple. They can message each other, they can exchange. Then it's good to exchange reviews at the end, because it helps for the next advertisers and also for the
Sure.
podcaster, because if there are reviews, it's much easier probably for the next advertiser to also order. And yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. So for a podcaster that I don't know, sometimes it helps our episodes to really come alive by giving a real example of possibly a podcast that might be in your community now, if you're open to speak about one, and to give
Yeah.
an example of a relationship between that podcaster and the
That is a
advertiser and
lot of times is
what.
the case, that advertiser comes from listeners of the podcaster, and we
Sure,
try to work on building, like, we have profile for every podcaster, and we're trying to connect everything at the same place, so they can literally have like even statistics, details, reviews, everything, and the ad offers on it, and really can help to podcaster to actually, for example, or wherever, and directly take orders from advertisers, from his
so it's
listeners.
really, is it a one-to-one exchange or is it a one-to-many? Like, for example, let's say I had a large brand and I wanted a larger number of ad spots than
Mhm.
any one particular advertiser could provide. Do you make it available for that advertiser to purchase
Yeah.
multiple spots
It
across?
is possible, yeah. To
Okay.
it Of course it takes a little bit time to research and to decide which ones, and but you can literally select also a few ones to
Okay.
multiple ones to order. It's possible as well. Also, actually, we've made it at first to be able to purchase one, so you can fill the whole and all details from A to Z, and then you can do the same again. But I think now we open both options, because it really depends on the advertiser and how they get used to. But it's good to have communication, because for advertiser and the podcaster, so they can exchange, like, even the message and all those details.
Sure.
So because it's host read ads, it's not like so much as programmatic, where you
Yes.
push a
Yeah.
pre-recorded ads. But I believe this with host read ads is, or go-to-market strategy, it's more personal, and it's
Makes a
more
lot of sense.
yeah, it's more converting for
And
the.
is there a typical, size that you see in terms of the length of an ad? Do you typically see advertisers, desiring a specific length?
Yeah, usually it's 30 to 60 seconds are really the most used ones.
Got it. Okay.
We have more options there, and of course you can add even more, but it's those are the usual ones.
And I know before the podcast we were talking, it sounds like you have different opportunities in terms of, in addition to just host read ads, you also have interviews and other formats, or?
Yeah, that's the idea. It's really uh, multiple types of ad offers where you can select host rate ad, pre-recorded ad, sponsored interview. Because a lot of I can see that this is the case lately with a lot of podcasters, even with a lot of downloads, that they're kind of complaining that sometimes marketers who work for specific for some brands or like agencies that work it connecting kind of um, take advantage of the podcaster to do interviews for free sometimes and or a
Sure.
lot of times, and they're actually it's okay when there is no budget, but when there is budget it's okay to be shared. So we try to open this market to really be more simplified. When it's offer listed there, you can always forward the advertiser to that offer, and yeah, it doesn't need to be overpriced or underpriced. It's if it's fair price, and both sides are happy to have that. And
Yeah, it
it's
makes a lot of sense, and
yeah,
it's very very interesting. I think the model that you have is absolutely very unique and makes a lot of sense.
thanks.
S- So when was Podvertise initially? You had mentioned that you launched officially back in September, did you say?
Yeah, that's when we started to onboard initial podcasts, because we've been working like kind of close to 2 years more or less before that to develop everything, to learn
Sure.
what we are doing, researching and everything. And but yeah, since we launched in September the marketplace, we've onboarded like 400 podcasts right now, something like this, and with about 300 ad offers. And right now we are even more focused not to onboard too fast the podcasts before we actually kind of pivoted our marketing as well in the last 2 months,
Sure.
since we are in
Sure.
founder university. It's accelerator in online accelerator in San Francisco, and we are right now more focused on gathering more advertisers, so we can actually onboard at the same time advertisers and podcasters. So there are actually more transactions and more. It's better for both sides this way. So we actually build an active community and active
Sure. No, that
marketplace.
makes a lot of sense. And are you
Yeah.
seeing more demand on one side versus the other, or is the demand equally matched, or what are you saying?
Yeah, well, of course, podcasters are open to advertisements. It's more like this, but I can see that a lot of advertisers, especially newcomers advertisers, because this is really a medium where I can see that a lot of demand is growing and will keep growing over the period ahead, because there is a lot of interest. There are a lot of brands that want to advertise on podcast medium, and it's just a little bit lack of education in the industry. So
Sure.
you have
Sure.
to research on your own, searching Google, and it's hard to find everything to know which one works better and how to do better. So I think it's a matter of education, and there for sure will be more and more advertisers interest.
Makes sense. And
Yeah.
are you seeing advertisers repeat their purchases and continue advertising with the same, podcast or different podcasts, or do you see some drop off in terms of after they've done their initial
Mhm.
spend that they may or may not come back? What are you seeing there?
We have really a few advertisers right now, so they're in
Sure.
their first campaigns, and some have interest more into interviews, some have more interest into host read ads, and I think those with host read ads try to expand a little bit faster. With interviews, of course, it takes time just to physically produce it and everything. But of what I know from like industry, bigger advertisers like. Where for example in platforms like Magiaone.ai and all this, they do like industry monthly reports, and like the brands, everybody probably heard about BetterHelp, and so they're really like their only focus is podcasts medium. So
Sure.
if the brand adapts their marketing campaigns through to the podcast medium, they can literally do super great for months, if not for years, because it's just a matter of matching how the content, how the audience consumes the content, I believe.
And what would you say in terms of the podcasts that are on the platform? Where is the greatest demand and the least demand in terms of the formats or types of podcasts?
Mhm. So in types of podcasts, they're literally of different industries, different interests and categories, because we've been uh, testing out outreaching to different categories, and the interest is literally about uh, kind of the same, you can say, but
Sure.
of advertisers, what we've had so far, there being like numbers of book authors that had interest to do interviews.
Yeah.
There were e-commerce brands in health and fitness, diets, and all this, and those were the most active ones, but I cannot validate it's the only
Yeah,
interest.
no,
It's
obviously you need
it's more like when the advertiser is listening to some podcast, they actually after that, for example, search more about how to promote their business on that podcast. So it could be even, yeah, it could be literally any industry, and the
sure.
size also is really interesting because there are a lot of smaller advertisers, but there are also some brands that are actually researching, like there being interest in actually from SaaS startups that were researching for specific startup industry podcasts, and they were interested to have interviews, for example. So I think that what I can see, especially in B2B, is that a lot of founders are kind of opening themselves to the podcast medium. So there'll be a lot of demand for, I believe, for the B2B industry for founder interviews over the next probably 1-2 years.
Makes your team and your go-to-market strategy. Have you found a lot of interest in terms of other types of markets that you didn't expect?
Can you hear me now? All right, all right. It freezed. I would say there's so many different types that, for example, there was a advertiser for arcade games, which I didn't know are online at all, but there was, and so it really is because there's hundreds of thousands of podcasts with different interests, so it's really broad. It's just sometimes local businesses want to be on a global podcast, which is interesting, and it takes a little bit time to educate them, like that it makes sense probably to start with more relevant or smaller podcasters and then grow to the bigger ones. So it's really everybody is still researching, I can say. It's like there is no standards, so in the advertising and even in the interviews, yeah, it's no, yeah, we have a scroll in the process of the transaction. So the once the advertiser verifies that that he's happy with the result, and then the money is released, and I think it's in the next 24 hours or something. Then we can make the payment to the podcaster, and we're implementing Stripe, so it should be even more faster over time. Yeah. We try to really make it more and more automated as over time. Right now we are using PayPal. And we will. Yeah, absolutely. And the next we will implement Stripe. Yeah, the front end aggregator, which is on Podvertise.fm, is actually in-house built, and it's actually matching the advertisers to the relevant podcasts, mostly based on the content from the podcaster, and then that is the first model, and we are working on also there is filtering by popularity, by episodes, by reviews, and so you can literally filter like you can search for specific phrase which is exact match in the content of the podcasts details, and then you can filter by most popular or if you want most episodes, reviews, ratings. we're yeah, we're working also on estimation of the podcast downloads, but it's still in the process, and we can add it as a filter later on. Yeah. Well, actually, the search engine is like our best future, I can say, because it really simplifies it. And in a second, you can find really the relevant podcasters very easy, and you can filter them and sort them by your interest. And we are also adding a new feature probably next week, which will be search within the search. So we'll add internal search where you can actually granular search inside that one, and that will really that will be super helpful, I think, for advertisers. And yeah, for podcasters, we really made it as much as possible simple to really add their ad offer in a few minutes and select the types of ad they want. So it really we have also a tutorial on how to do that, so it really simplifies the process for listing their ad offers. Yeah, so really, we are kind of like, as I mentioned, Fiverr or eBay, Amazon, all those marketplaces or product marketplaces list the price, right? In services marketplaces, it's always like an agency model where you have to contact and research more details, have an onboarding call and all this. We really try to speed the whole of that process, and we're trying to educate both sides to work together on that. And podcasters, we're educating them that if they simplify and really list their ad offers public, uh, maybe they won't be able to offer price based on specific if huge brand finds them, but it's usually a very rare case anyway, so it makes more sense to really have. And also I've seen it in like the biggest podcasters out there, they really have simple packages ad offers, and it really obviously it works for the biggest podcasters. It makes sense to work for smaller ones, to literally to list their ad offer, and when you have the public pricing, the advertiser can orient in the seconds and really find, for example, if he's a starting advertiser and has more budget, he'll still be able to find relevant podcasts, and smaller podcasts can monetize actually their content while they need 5,000 or more downloads to monetize with bigger ad networks and all this. So it's literally open for everyone, and the public pricing is I haven't seen that yet. So yeah. Well, we have podcast ad offers on the marketplace, which is marketplace.podvertise.fm, where you have offers from their offers from $5, and their offers for I think $7,000-8,000. So it really depends on. We're really open to. The idea is to really open it for everyone, so even smaller podcasters to have opportunity to monetize. Because I'm sure when advertisers see it and they don't have to go through the whole communication process, outreaching to one by one, when they see multiple podcasts, even smaller ones from the category or search they're interested, it will be really easy for them to literally purchase and test with smaller podcasters, or of course go with bigger ones, depends on their So it's literally for now. I think most of the ad offers are per episode, but I've seen like there was a podcaster, super smart model. He managed on his own. I have to write his model in the tutorial. Like he made a brand month, for example. So he can literally make a series of podcast interviews or podcast sponsorships or host retweets for a whole month to mention that brand. And it's really yeah, the idea is it's really open, so everybody can improvise as they want, really, to make. I try to educate even more advertisers on that, because they podcasters are, I can see they're more mature, and they know more about usually what I've seen from industry standards is from $25 to $40 per 1,000 downloads. That's realistic, and of course I've seen some that over will help the ones that underprice over time to really find their pricing, and that is the industry standard. And of course it depends on how much demand, I suppose, you have and all this. Yeah, 30 to 60 seconds. Also, I think it depends. If you do pre-roll, it could be 30 seconds. If you do mid-roll, it could be 1 minute, 60 seconds. And it's really something that I've seen a lot of types, so I don't have that much data to know yet. Yeah. It's a good thing to learn. Yeah. Usually 30 to 60 seconds, and the most ones that are most used are pre-roll and mid-roll, and post-roll is late. Yeah, we want to, and we are researching right now how to work and extract data. We're also researching on big data solutions and how to manage with podcast transcriptions details and infos with episode details, so we can actually find out the most how to say advertisers, so guests and all this info, and literally to be able to extract a lot of big data decision making, you can say tax. So this will help a lot to marketers to and to brands to really find out. Also, it will really help us to match the advertisers on specific bigger podcasters, for example, to help them to literally outreach for them to smaller podcasters and to match them, and to build win-win partnerships for with the same audience for that brand to expand into podcast medium. And we're working on that kind of big data. I'm not mentioning AI. It's machine learning, you can say. We're on that level. Yeah, I think the one of the biggest trends, or at least what I see from my audience, is mostly around B2B startups and in LinkedIn of decision makers and all this. And I really see that a lot of founders will really, as I told you earlier, will open to become guests on podcasts. And I think a lot of founders will try to build a little bit more influence in their audience, in their industry. So I think this is the big trend. And another trend I think will really happen, that a lot of advertisers from uncertainty things and times into even in social networks and search engines may eventually try to build more advertisements into more mediums. So podcast is really growing year over year, if not month over month. So I think that will be really something that will be more explored by brands and small businesses. Yeah, I think it's really growing, and the monetization will really start to work out better for both sides. Yeah, I've heard some statistics about 6% or something slowed down, less podcasters in the last 3 months or something. But I think it's really a cycles, and when there is better better conditions of the medium, I think a lot of them will return, and maybe many new will emerge. Yeah, that's a good one, and I really have, at least if I have done it, even I heard it, but it took me a while to release it. Is like, do not perfect the do not over develop and perfect the things before you launch, because when you launch, the things change on a weekly basis, if not a shorter time. So you still have to change, and you have to develop again and build again, and so it's really better to start working with, even with Google Forms, with potential clients, and with, if it's a marketplace, with both sides, if it's a SaaS, with directly with clients. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you can perfect the whole year, and then you still have to rework it when you start working. Thank you, Michael. It was great talk. Yeah. So on podvertise.fm, and I have the LinkedIn icon is in the footer, so you can find me on LinkedIn. Thank you, Michael, for having me.